Okay, everyone, just a few notes on genetic and environmental foundations. Little refresher on genetics. If you got some of this from Intro to Psych or other classes. There's a little bit of a difference between the genotype, which is the actual information, the genetic information that we inherit, and the phenotype. And those are just the small individual differences in how that genotype is expressed. Really, the most obvious place we see this is with identical twins. If you've ever known a set of identical twins, or maybe identical triplets, which is relatively rare, you will know that they look very, very similar, but not exactly the same. And that's because their genetic information is identical, but how that information is expressed in their phenotype is slightly different. So that explains for the very slight difference in identical twins. That you may only be able to notice if you know them very well, or obviously the parents. But that's really the most obvious example of genotype and phenotype. So you may remember from a biology class that the chromosomes are those rod-like structures within the cell, and they're on our DNA, which is the information, the chemical substance that makes up those chromosomes, which contain our genetic information, and that's individual to each person outside of identical twins. The genes are those little pieces of DNA along the length of the chromosome. So as I mentioned, there are identical twins. There are also individuals who are fraternal twins. Identical twins happen when a single egg is fertilized by a single sperm, and then that separates into two individual zygotes, and then those zygotes form individual babies. Fraternal twins results from the release of two eggs fertilized by two separate sperm. And so those individuals are as related as siblings. However, they share one thing that siblings do not share, which is an identical prenatal environment. So they spend their prenatal period in the same environment, which is slightly different from the experience of siblings who are raised or who are developed in separate, different prenatal environments. So the mother may be experiencing things that are different in those two separate prenatal environments that are experienced by siblings. Fraternal twins do share that same prenatal environment. There are multiple chromosomal abnormalities. The most frequently seen is something called Down syndrome, and that's caused by a problem with the 21st chromosome. And you will see and read more about that in your textbook, and as we go through the semester, some of the effects of some of these chromosomal abnormalities. There can also be sex chromosome abnormalities caused by problems with the X or Y chromosome. Some of these are not noticeable until adolescence. Some of them can cause more significant issues. They are relatively rare, but we will discuss some of those as we go as well. Nowadays, there are reproductive technologies that are available to assist individuals who wish to have children and may be unable to do so because of medical conditions. Also, many times these technologies are utilized by same-sex couples or individuals who are not in a relationship that would allow them to conceive naturally. So there are many options available nowadays, other avenues to fertility, and new technologies available every year to assist individuals who wish to have children. Genetic counseling is a fairly new idea. It helps as the technology improves with our analysis of genetic information. What's available for counseling is becoming more and more widespread. Before we had really good information about what genes were responsible for different disorders. Really, it was a matter of what's in your family history. It would give you a certain percentage of the likelihood that you might pass on a genetic issue to your child. Now we can analyze cells before implantation in a laboratory, and give couples and individuals more information about the possibility of a potential child inheriting these conditions. Adoption is also an option for individuals who wish to have children. There are international adoptions. Adoption of older children is a really important topic as children age in the foster care system and in the social services systems. Their likelihood of adoption decreases, and so assistance for these individual children is very important. And so there's been an increase in awareness for adoption of older children, but it still is, again, as children age, the likelihood of their adoption decreases. And certainly adoption of children with developmental issues and disorders also decreases their likelihood of adoption. So agencies are always trying to raise awareness about the individuals in those conditions or in those circumstances. Some of the environmental things that can affect development, and again, we'll talk more about this throughout the semester, the family where the child is being raised, socioeconomic status we know can affect development, as well as neighborhoods and culture. Socioeconomic status is linked with, again, so if you remember from the research lecture, these are correlations. So these are things that go together, but we cannot say necessarily that one causes the other. So these are all correlational relationships, where socioeconomic status is linked to the timing of marriage and parenthood, family size, values and expectations for children, parents' education and economic security, discipline styles, and focus on child's cognitive development and early reading skills can all be linked with socioeconomic status. Poverty is an increasing issue in society, particularly in American society. 46 million children are estimated to be living at the poverty level, and these numbers seem to be increasing. Younger parents with younger children, particularly single mothers or single parent or single fathers, struggle more with poverty issues, as well as older adults and individuals in minority and indigenous backgrounds. This is a new term, this idea of affluence. This was a term that was brought into the awareness during a trial for a young man who was accused of multiple DWIs. I believe he had killed an individual, at least in while he was driving while intoxicated. And his lawyers claimed that he was not responsible because his parents were affluent, they were very wealthy, and had never held him to a certain level of responsibility, and therefore he had never learned that he should be responsible for his own decisions. This was obviously a very controversial defense and something that you may wish to explore further. Feel free to bring it up in the discussion area if you wish. This idea of affluenza. Neighborhoods beyond the family, within the family, the importance of other adults and individuals in the child's life, how that can affect child development and adolescent development. Neighborhoods are important. Towns and cities mold the child's experience. It's believed that small towns promote connection and participation, although I'd be more than happy to hear about your individual experiences, where you were raised, and how you felt connected to your neighborhood, if so, and how that might have affected your development. Cultural values, certainly the values and sometimes religion of the family can have an effect on child development. They can shape daily life. Strong community ties, strong family ties have been shown to be a protective factor in mitigating some of the effects of poverty, as well as public policy can affect conditions in neighborhoods. And if you're looking at any current event stories, certainly what's happening currently in politics and government is having an effect on individuals in different neighborhoods, in different areas of the state, different areas of the country. So again, that could be a possible topic for your discussion. What could be the effect of some of these public policies on neighborhoods and environments for children and adolescents? Extended families, 2 or 3 or more generations living together, does seem to be more common in minority cultures, but there does seem to be an increase in all of society as our population ages and individuals are living longer. Many families are experiencing a multi-generational home environment. There do seem to be many benefits to this experience, creating strong family bonds, an increase of adult supervision in the home for children. Many times that can alleviate some of the child care burdens on parents. So there does seem to be some benefit with these extended families. The effect of the sort of mindset of the entire society. The United States is thought to be a very individualistic society versus some other countries that are more collectivist. Individualist societies tend to focus more on individual freedoms and independence, whereas collectivist societies tend to focus more on the benefit of the group or the overall society. So there's been certainly a lot of discussion and looking at the effect of an individualistic society versus collectivist with things like mask wearing and contact tracing with this current COVID crisis. How are individualistic societies responding to things like mask mandates and the idea of contact tracing? Looking back at where we have been as individuals and whom we might have exposed if we had the COVID virus. Has there been any resistance in the United States to that idea versus other societies that tend to be more collectivist? Have they been more receptive to that idea? Again, if you'd like to bring that up in the discussion area, it should be relatively easy to access some research on that. So, again, you need to back up your statements with some data. But I'd be interested to hear what some of your thoughts are on that. So, again, if you know anyone who is an identical twin, or even with siblings who have similar genetic makeup, their experience in their environment is different. So, even with identical or similar genetic information, individuals still are different in the same environment. Another area that social psych researchers like to look at, or another group, are individuals who were separated at birth who are identical twins. This is a relatively rare group of individuals, but there has been extensive research with those individuals to see what's the effect of genetics and what's the effect of environment. All right, so the next set of lectures will be in relation to the prenatal environment, and so please check that out. You will see the link to this PowerPoint below the video lecture, so if you'd like to look at any of those slides individually, feel free to click on that.